comes from Goriška Regional Museum and also from the Faculty of Humanities at the University of Primorskem.
Thank you. So in my presentation, I'm going to talk about short, 5-kilometer long, but very torrential river Hubelj and its role through the history of Ajdovščina. I will focus mainly on 19th century. Ajdovščina is a town in the central part of Vipava Valley, and it's known for its archaeological remains from the Roman time and its long industrial tradition. So today, Ajdovščina is developing economically very fast, and it's known for its innovative companies, but I'll talk about this a bit later. So, as I said, Hubelj is a short river, which springs under the edge of the steppe walls of the Trnovskega forest. And unlikely the other rivers in the Vipava Valley, the spring of the river lies relatively high above the valley floor, what gives a river power. And with a flow of up to 85 cubic meters per second, which is quite a lot, the Hubelj is considered as wild and fast river. It comes down in Ajdovščina center, from where it continues toward the Vipava river. So this picture, the first picture was taken on 4th of August this year, after very heavy rains. So you can see how torrential and how wild the river can be Hubelj. This is the spring of the river, and the second picture was made 3 weeks later, on 25th of August. So it could also be a slow and nice, let's say. So Hubelj had different roles over time. It was one of the factors for settlement. It played the role of a border for several centuries, and what will be most emphasized in this presentation, it was a factor of location for the industrial development from 16th century on. So I'll go very briefly through the fact that Hubelj was a factor of settlement. In the Roman period, on 1st century AD, it saw the emergence of larger settlement with post and freight station along important road connection between Aquileia and Emona. Emona is today Ljubljana. And 200 years later, smaller but very important fortress was built as a part of the fence system of the east frontier of Roman Empire. So at the time, Hubelj had the role of water source, of course, as also today, as well as the defensive role of the eastern part of the wall. So here you can see Lukavčak is a stream in Hubelj River today. And the area of the fortress is today city center of Ajdovščina. There's a square with a main square. In the Middle Ages, Hubelj was recognized as a border between the dominion of Gorica and the seniority of Vipava. Its role as a border continued in 16th century, when the county of Gorica was joined with the Habsburg heredity lands. Hubelj delimited the lands of Gorica and Carniola, princely county of Gorica and Gradiška and Carniola, right until the First World War. And it divided the present day town to a part under the administration of Gorica. These were catastral municipalities of Ajdovščina and Lukavec, and under the administration of Carniola, cadastral municipality of Študije here. And here is Hubelj, running towards the Vipava river. So in the second half of the 19th century, Ajdovščina and Študije each had their own municipality, and each on his its own mayor and their own schools, saving bank, and so on. So it's difficult to say how much the border has affected the lives of the inhabitants. The border divided both catastral municipalities more or less administratively, but I would say that it did not much affect it. Like some examples show that there was an initiative to merge the primary schools from both sides, and for nearly a decade, officials have been trying to agree on this merger. However, this did not happen, not because of some administrative obstacles, but because they could not agree on which side to build the school. Okay, so that was the main problem. What is interesting also is that Hubelj as a border has reminded in the collective memory of all the residents of Ajdovščina. Even today, when we meet or when I meet some older inhabitant, he will ask me from which side of the bank of Hubelj I'm coming from, if I come from študije or from Ajdovščina or from left or right bank of the river. So even 100 years later, this consciousness remains. And I can tell you that also the rivalry between inhabitants from both sides of the river also. Let's take a look on Hubelj as a factor of location for the industrial development. Until the first half of the 19th century, Ajdovščina was a rural settlement. This started to change after the first modern industrial plant, a spinning mill, which is here, okay, was built on the right bank of Hubelj. However, this was not the first pre-industrial plant in the area of today's town. This map shows the industrial plants that operated in the area of Ajdovščina from the 16th to the 21st century. So the green color indicates plants that started to operate in the 16th and in 19th century. Pink indicates plants from 19th century, and the blue indicates plants from 20th century. So the industrial activities can be traced continuously from the early millennium period to present day. The first plants from 16th to 19th century depend on the power of the Hubelj, and therefore they are arranged along its course. So if I now I'll present those plants so in the 61st are the ironworks are here from the 16th century. The then emperor granted a concession to 5 associates to start with the construction of ironworks on Hubelj River, and also granted the permission for the transport and trade of iron. One of the reasons for granting permission was a favorable location next to Hubelj. The ironworks continued to work in 18th and 19th century. In the second half of 18th century, also copper work is mentioned in the area of Hubelj. In the 19th century, the ironworks were expanded and launched the production of copper products, using mainly scrap copper. Hubelj was used as an energy for the operation of bellows, for fanning the fire, and water-powered hammers for washing and cooling raw materials and charcoal. The remains of these facilities, which closed down just before the First World War, are still visible today. This picture is from 1926, I think. So, okay. In the 18th century, the merchant and play card manufacturer Tomáš Kumar built paper mill, which is here, on the right bank of the Hubelj River. The building was in the shape of letter U, and on the east part of the building there were 2 overshot water wheels powering the mill. The water wheels powered 48 stamping hammers, which turned the material were cloths, in stone taps to fine pulp. This paper mill employed 24 people, and the paper production process was a team effort. It offered 39 types of paper in 4 different qualities, so it's really, really big paper mill. In its heydays, Kumar's paper mill was the larger paper making mill in what is today Slovenia, and based on the number of employees and the work process, historian classifies the paper mill as a manufacturer. It worked until the first half of 19th century, and this entrance portal is the only thing that's left from the paper mill today. So, as I mentioned in the 18th century, as I mentioned in the late 1820s, a large spinning mill grew just outside of Ajdovščina in a rural backwater. This is this one. Impressive for its times, it was the tallest and biggest facility than any other ever built in the valley. It was built with the money of Trieste merchants and businessmen who recognized the hydroenergy potential of Hubelj to power machines and drive their business. It was one of the first textile factories in Slovenian lands, and it played a big part in changing the large agricultural profile of Ajdovščina. Along with the factory come foreign textile experts who occupied the more responsible positions in the company and an influx of wayfaring laborers from near and far. So with the local, mostly rural population gradually taking jobs in the new industry, the local lifestyle began to change as well. Keeping the business technologically up to date ensured the growth and success of the spinning mill. One part of this was the purchase of Funeron turbine, which replaced water wheel, and the new turbine generated 60 horsepower and was responsible for a major increase in production. The spinning mill processed mostly American, Macedonian, Egyptian cotton, as well as a cotton from the Middle East and India. The company was operating relatively smoothly, even through several transfers of ownership and name changes. It stopped during the First World War, when it was used by the Austro-Hungarian armed forces to accommodate a hospital, and following the Second World War, the textile factory in Ajdovščina was established in the premises of the former business. The weaving facility ultimately stopped in 2005, and the reconstruction was initiated the very same year. The strategy of the current company is focused on the production or design of fashionable high-end fabrics and technical textiles. So in this way, its 200-year tradition still lives on. So as I said, with the paper mill and spinning mill, Ajdovščina begins to develop into an industrial place. Around 1830s, 1/3 of Ajdovščina population made their living on industrial work, and half of which did so in these two larger plants, especially in the spinning mill. After the construction of the spinning mill, new plants begin to emerge along the Hubelj. In 1837, the merchant mechanical engineer Josef Nussbaum set up a veneer cutting sawmill and tanning mill on the grassy plateau, not far away from Fužine, from ironworks. And beside this building here. And besides running a wood processing operation, he had a professional background as a mechanical engineer and an inventive mind. His son August followed in his father's footsteps, and he too was an inventor and turbine maker. In 1892, August set up a pasta factory on Hubelj, and this chic advertisement, you can read behind my back, beckoned customers to purchase products from his new factory. Only after 2 years, production came to an abrupt end by devastating fire that destroyed the building, the products, and the interior, and August lost the factory and profits from unsold goods. But he didn't stop. In 1897, he set up an electroforming institute, in Slovenian is galvanoplastični zavod, saj tako ga imenujejo viri, no? For producing copperware, and the power plant for direct current production. So this is a power plant. The cookware was made through the galvanization, which is an electrochemical method. So for making pots, he used pot molds onto which he applied copper by using galvanization. And this was quite a new way for making cookware from copper. After August's death, his property was sold to the newly founded power plant company named Elektrarna Hublja, and the power plant supplied electricity to the municipalities of Ajdovščina, Študije, and Lokavec until the Second World War. Then in the mid-19th century, two facilities grow here in Pale. And they were operated by industrial company Pali, Ajdovščina. This was a brewery and mechanical mill. We don't have much information about the brewery. This is a brewery, and this is a mechanical mill. We don't have much information about the brewery apart this plan. It shows the layout of the brewery and the working process. So it was used as a storage and barley sprouting facility, and of course for making beer. And there are also very big cellars for making beer, and this part is still visible today, but it's underground. 2 more minutes. Ooh. The company statute, among the reasons for the construction of mill and brewery, is mentioned water of Hubelj, and according to statute, the beer will be of excellent quality due to the clearness and purity of water. So in this case, we can say that the Hubelj water is also, I don't know if we can say that, but maybe we might, I know it's just a sentence in the statute, but maybe we can say that it's also quality factor for the production of food products. More information is known about the mill. It was one of the most important mechanical mills in the Goriški region, and it ceased its operation in 1889 when it closed down. And shortly before that, it employed 43 people and had an annual production volume of 3,000 tons of flavor. So yes, so just before the First World War, the facilities accommodated a tin factory and company involved in the production. Electricity divided, and during First World War, the buildings were occupied by Austrian military administration. So the last plant is from 19th century, was Jochman Mill, which was here. And this was the history of Jochman Mill begins in 1867 when Miller Vincent Jochman moved to Ajdovščina from the small Czech town, and he founded the company. The mill was originally comprised of 2 separate buildings divided by a mill race, which conducted water to power to 9 water wheels. And the biggest wheel powered the chaff separator, the transport devices, and some auxiliary devices. 2 wheels powered the barley hulling stamp mills, and the remaining 6 powered the milestones. Years later, Jochman refurbished the mill, an updated mill, and after the completion of the works, the mill was 4-story building. Renovation also redirected the water stream through the mill, and previous water wheels were replaced with a turbine with mechanical transmission and 2 newer water wheels. And all but 2 milestones were replaced with modern rollers, making one of the first upgrades of this type in Europe at that time. The second time, Jochman Mill was renovated in the beginning of 20th century, but mill continued to rely on a combination of water and electricity as it power source till the end of the Second World War. And post-war, the mill was nationalized and officially reopened as the district mill of Ajdovščina, and this set the groundwork for the company Mlinos Dest, which keeps thriving to this day. So this is Jochman Mill today. After the Second World War, some companies emerged in Ajdovščina. In the 19th century, became the backbone of post-war industry, like textile tradition emerged the textile factory, and regional milling tradition emerged factory to produce flavor and pasta and pastry, and a number of other companies sprang forth as well. Till today, some of them were put out of business, especially after the 1991, while others underwent reconstruction and continue on their path. Future-oriented startups are also making headway. So today, Ajdovščina is the industrial center of Goriški region and one of the fastest developing industrial towns in Slovenia. And so industry tradition continues, and I'll stop here. Thank you.